interesting graffiti-covered stone wall. How about the fact that you're actually looking at the Great Sphinx of Egypt? What we now know, thanks to the work of Dr. Robert Schoch, John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, and others, is the fact that the Sphinx has been shown to be older than any pharaoh, at least 2,000 or 3,000 years older than the first known pharaoh. So we're looking at a pre-dynastic, pre-pharaonic construction. This, of course, is repair work, and the Sphinx has been repaired over and over and over again. It's even been written that the Sphinx was being repaired during the time of Khufu and Khafre, the pharaohs supposedly responsible for the giant pyramids behind the Sphinx. But water erosion, as based on the work of Dr. Robert Schoch, as shown here in the Sphinx enclosure, it's water erosion that caused the necessity to repair the Sphinx. The head is not original. It was recarved at least once. And what most people don't know is that the Sphinx was originally simply the head exposed above the plane of sandstone. It was dug out to create the shape of the body, but it wasn't dug out with a bunch of adzes, shovels, and chisels. Cubes were taken out, giant cubes, which wound up being converted into the Sphinx Temple and possibly also the Valley Temple nearby.
Okay, we're now going to discuss the erosion on the Sphinx, and we have to give credit to the great Dr. Robert Schoch from Boston University, who first was brought here by John Anthony West in the early 90s and did a detailed study of the erosion of the Sphinx. It was featured in a NBC special, Mysteries of the Sphinx, which was nominated for 2 Emmys and won an Emmy for Best Original Screenplay. As Dr. Schoch explains, limestone is sedimentary rock, forms in sediments under the ocean. It's called nummulitic limestone. It has little seashells, nummullites. So it does not form uniform. Limestone falls heterogeneous, not homogeneous, meaning you could have a hard layer, soft layer, harder layer, soft layer, harder layer, hard layers, harder layer. So what he found is the particular erosion that we see here. Some of the hardest layer, he actually mapped the whole stratigraphy of this side, each layer, in its hardness and its durability. So what he found was some of the hardest layers of deposition are the most eroded. So he concluded that it would take rainfall beating at an angle for thousands of years to do this. Not a flash flood, not a flash rainfall. It takes steady rainfall for thousands and thousands of years. The hardest erosion layers are eroded. And it has this particular rounded surface, which Dr. Schoch says is classic water erosion, not wind and sand, which we can see in the 4th Dynasty tombs, cut away, eaten away by the sand. This rolling, rounded is clearly water erosion, and clearly cannot be because of climatic conditions less than 8 to 10,000 years that the climate was here to cause that type of rainfall. That's his conservative estimate. We say well over 10,000 years. Hakim placed the date of the Sphinx at 54,000 years. What also Dr. Schoch found was the erosion in the front of the Sphinx was 8 feet deep. The erosion layer in the back of the Sphinx was 4 feet deep. Not all constructed at the same time. First was the head and the forelegs, then the body and the tail much, much later, thousands of years later. So she's not done it all at the same time, but that obviously the head was done first. And also he concluded that the top layer that you can see was actually the ground level of the plateau. Only what was now the head would have been sticking out. It would have been just a limestone outcropping, originally what you called a yardang. Only the head. And so the head is out of proportion. We know she's been carved back many, many times. According to Hakim's tradition, the original head of the Sphinx was like Sekhmet or Tefnut, if we see her in images, a lioness-human combination. I believe it's been recarved back by who was called Menes Men Aha, carved it in face of his mother, black African woman. But clearly the erosion is the smoking gun. This cannot be caused by wind and sand. This is classic water erosion, at least 10,000 years old.